Hello, how y'all doing today? Nice day here in Nashville. Starting to turn fall, and it's still a good time for football. So, win for the Titans this week. They got a real good win against the Colts. Finally ended that streak. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Howling with the Wolfe. So, you guys know the deal. Shoot your questions whenever. I'll kick it off just kind of doing a brief review of the game. We'll look ahead to the Brownies. It was let's start with Marcus, and man, I think, in my opinion, that was his best game of the year. Some could argue the Seattle game because of the opponent and how the team performed as a whole, but for him being limited, injured, dealing with that hamstring, being restricted to stay in the pocket, and the type of passes he made, the type of drives that he put about, and the way he put away an opponent that had tortured the Titans for 11 straight games, I think was impressive. So big props up to Marcus. I think a lot of us wanted to see how he would respond throughout the week. I was telling you guys that it looked like he was going to be able to play. They got the final word about over the weekend, and we kind of got that hint as they finished practice that he was going to be able to go. He wasn't 100%, as you guys probably saw. He wasn't able to run on that hamstring. One time it was funny to see him slide for a sack. That kind of just showed you how much of importance was it for them not to see him take off and run. He only had one pass outside of the pocket, and it was a throwaway. So I think that was your vintage pocket passing Marcus Mariota, and I think that really shut up a lot of folks that felt like he only is a playmaker with his legs. He showed that he could be a mental playmaker, and he can be a playmaker with that right arm. And I think that'll be big for the Titans, for him going forward to really gain that confidence that he can be a strong passer solely from inside the pocket. Maybe it helps his confidence with his footwork. Maybe it helps him slow down a little bit going forward, even when he gets those legs back as a weapon. I'm intrigued to see it all. I do think that it was one game, so we've got to be careful not to overreact a little bit. But let's face it, man, they were going to be in bad shape if they lost this game. You lose to the Colts without Andrew Luck. That doesn't really bode well for your long-term goals. But now they're 3-3. Sort of the mediocrity of the AFC South, if they're still in the thick of it. They're tied for first place, and they got the Browns this week. So you could really look at a very good chance that they go into the bye 4-3. What's up with Corey Davis? Keep it real. I'll try to keep it real. I'll try to keep it real as much as I can. They're going to wait till he's 100%. They're not going to rush him out here. He's not going this week. He's out this week. They've got to bye. The plan is for him to come back after the bye. So that would set him up to come back week 9 versus Baltimore if everything goes right. There's no guarantee. He could still sit out if something happens, if there's a setback, or if he's not ready. But I think that's a fair estimate for him to come back. That hamstring is no joke. He missed a month with it. He aggravated it. It wasn't a minor strain. It was a moderate strain. So he missed a month with it initially. And, usually aggravations, you miss more time once you aggravate that hamstring injury again. So now he's going to miss, looks like, about a month and a half. He's going to miss 5 games, basically, at least, and maybe 6. But, I'm thinking 5. If I was a betting man, I'd probably say he'll be back versus Baltimore, and that'd be 5 games. So I think once he's back, he's 100% back, got that behind him. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Then you got a potential number 1 receiver back into the offense. Him, Rashard Matthews, and Delaney Walker will really open up the passing game in ways that we saw in their Week 1 game against Oakland starting out, and then he had a really good game. So I think Corey Davis is close. You'll see him soon, but not this week. So that's where we're at. I wrote a story this morning about the running back, rotation, and the way Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray are sort of working out, because Derrick Henry had the big day And this is the second time he's had a big day over DeMarco. Against Jacksonville, he also had that big day. But I think the pattern, and we talked to Mike Mularkey on Monday, is he's saying that was a good model. You know, Derrick Henry had 40 reps out of the Titans' 78 reps, and DeMarco Murray had 38. It wasn't 78. It was like 40 of 70. 40 of 70, and DeMarco had 38 of 70. So you're looking at almost 50-50 even split for the backs. And Mularkey basically said that, hey, this is what I want to see going forward. As far as touches, you had DeMarco with 16 total touches. You had Derrick Henry with 20 total touches. So you say, you know, what does that mean going forward? That means that this is going to be a timeshare. And for fantasy football owners, you know, the running back by committee thing is what I wrote earlier today. That's something that they dread. But it seems like that's going to be the way that, you know, the Titans are going to be most successful going forward. One interesting note is I asked Mike Mularkey, because there had been a notion, and it had really been drawn to the fact that Derrick Henry was closing games. Like, he has 25 fourth-quarter carries to DeMarco Murray's 8 fourth-quarter carries. So it's a split throughout, and it's more DeMarco early in the game. But in the fourth quarter, they give the ball to Derrick Henry, and they say, go ahead, big fella. Take him down. Take us home. And, you know, the way that he can run over defenders, his physical style, he's a bruising back, you know, defender, you know, 250-pound back. I always say Derrick Henry looks like a transformer. You know, I used to play DB. If Derrick Henry's coming at me, I'm not going to want anything to do with him. And I know defenders in the fourth quarter, as they're tired, they've probably had to, you know, run up and down the field all game. They're trying to get out of there. They don't want to tackle a 250-pound running back. So he's perfect for that role. He's averaging almost 8 yards a carry in the fourth quarter. So I think going forward, you'll see a lot of DeMarco Murray on early downs, on passing downs, and in the first 3 quarters with Derrick Henry sprinkled in during that time. And then in the fourth quarter, I think you'll see DeMarco Murray give way for the most part to Derrick Henry. We did see DeMarco Murray get those 4 straight carries in that first touchdown drive, but we saw Derrick Henry get almost all of the carries the rest of the way, including that big 72-yarder down the lane. Derrick needs to put his head down and run guys over. Yeah, I mean, that's easier said than done. I mean, he's not only a physical back. I know a lot of people see his size and they say that he's just a brute inside the tackle runner. He can run outside, and he's actually pretty effective on it. But the problem comes in that sometimes he bounces outside a little too much. The one that he ran, the 72-yarder to the house, he ran around the corner. He bounced it all the way out to the corner, got to the edge, and then cut it back for the touchdown. So if he puts his head down and just runs guys over straight ahead, we don't have that 72-yard touchdown. So I think he's trying to prove that he can be a dynamic 3-down back for the Titans eventually. But I do agree that, you know, there are some runs where he may be looking for 20 when the Titans just need 2. And that's something that all running backs deal with. They're all looking for the big play at all times. And there's a lot of scenarios where, you know, there isn't much going on. So for Derrick, you know, he's got to be able to say, hey, I'm happy with getting 3 or 4 yards. It's always the 3 yards and cloud of dust sort of saying as far as a running back. You know, you get 3 yards, you get 3 yards, you get 3 yards, and it's a cloud of dust. You get 30 yards. And you never know when that 30 is going to come, but you got to be satisfied with 3. That's why a lot of people get frustrated when the Titans just run the ball when it's not working. They're like, get away from the run, it's not working. But you got to establish that run like they did against Indianapolis, even when it's struggling, because those defenders get tired, and eventually there's going to be a hole that busts, and you never know when that big play is going to come through. I mean, he's not Eddie George. He does run people over a good bit of time. He puts his head down and runs a good bit of time. But to say that he's just going to be inside the tackle, running back sort of limits what he can do in his skill set. And Eddie George bounced it outside as well. So, you know, complete running backs do it both. But I do agree that, you know, there's too many negative runs oftentimes because they're looking for more than just the 3 or 4 yards that are blocked for. So yeah, I'm eager to see how that running back. This is a really good week for those running backs to eat. DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry, I think they showed this week that they can both eat. I know we, as media, fan base, everybody loves to say either or. It's got to be Derrick, it's got to be DeMarco, but it can be both. And I think they showed that if they get enough carries. Like I said, 20 touches for Derrick Henry, 16 touches for DeMarco Murray. That's 36 touches combined for the running back. They'll take that every day. Their two running backs are two of their top 5 playmakers on offense. So if you get them a combined 35 plus touches every game, both of them are going to be happy, no matter who is the lead back, no matter who's getting the most snaps, regardless. I think that's the position that you get them in going forward, particularly with DeMarco and his ability as a pass catching back. You can use him in those situations and use Derrick Henry as that physical back, that put your head down back that you're mentioning, Larry, particularly late in the fourth quarter. I saw somebody mention earlier about, Larry, you mentioned about the Cleveland game. I agree that's a game that has trap written all over it. Trap games are typically either before or after a big game, usually in between. There's a bye week next week, but this could be a scenario where you say, it's the Browns. We just get past the Browns and we're good. We can kind of skate walk. And this is an NFL squad. I know they're 0-6. I know they're probably the worst team in the league, but I don't know if any of you guys saw the Giants-Broncos game on Sunday Night Football the other day, where the Giants were 0-5 and the Broncos, I think, were 4-1 going into that game at home. The Giants don't have Odell Beckham and a lot of different receivers, and they just smashed them. The Giants just smashed them. It looked like the Broncos kind of cakewalked that week. They said, hey, we got the Giants. They don't have Odell. We're good. If the Titans do that against the Browns, best believe there's some Browns on the other side of the field, particularly Jason McCourty, that want to get a win here, and they don't care how they do it. They've got to come out in that game and play good football. Like I said, I think this will be a game where you probably can take it easy on Marcus. You don't need a 300-yard passing day. I don't think, with Marcus in a game like this. This could be a game where if you can get ahead early, you can really lean on DeMarco and Derrick and get those guys both touches. This could be another 35-plus touch day combined for Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray. And I think that's probably one of my keys to the game. If you can get those guys to really carry the ball, that means that you're playing well. You got to come out of this game with no injuries. But if you get them a run-heavy attack, get ahead early on this Browns team, and just kind of cruise, don't make it more difficult than it needs to be, then they can be in good shape health-wise with Marcus going forward and as far as the team. Not related to this upcoming game, but anyone have an idea on our new uniforms next season, when we'll see a sneak preview, design info, and whatnot? Yeah, I know that there, Amy Adams Strunk talked about there being a new design at this point next year. So we haven't heard anything further about it. I'm excited to see it, just like you guys. New uniforms are, I'm ready to see a fire uniform. I think that there are a lot of different color schemes that they can make work with this team, and I don't think they'll go too exotic. I don't think it'll be too drastically different from what they normally do. But if we see a sneak preview, if they let us know on ideas of what it looks like, you guys will be the first to know. I'll make sure to, if I can get a picture, if I can get good descriptions, I'll come back here on a Wednesday and I'll give you the laydown on all that is the Titans' new uniform. Joey, is Derrick being coached to bounce outside at first chance, or is it just instinct? Rarely see him go up the gut. I think some of his instincts. I mean, it's his second year, but he's still a young back. He's probably coming from an area in Alabama where he was the best athlete on the field most of the time. And even though he's a physical specimen, he's not the fastest player on the field. He's not often the biggest and most physical player on the field. So although he has a rare athletic skill set for a running back, when he's going against outside linebackers who run the same 40 as him, it really doesn't help him as much to bounce outside. So I think he's still learning that. I think he's coached to run the play that's called. So if it's 35 slant deuce, which is one of the Titans' favorite plays, that's a run inside on the guard, he's supposed to stay on the hip of that guard. And sometimes he does. Sometimes he thinks he sees another hole to bounce it outside. You want to let a running back trust their instincts because their instincts are what got them here. But sometimes it backburns. You know, you've got to decide, hey, are we able to live with the no gains, the 1 yard losses, the 2 yard losses when he misses his hole, when he's trying to bounce it outside, in exchange for him getting the 72-yard touchdown that he did when he bounced it outside on that last run. So, you know, that's a question that, you know, he's probably talked with the coaching staff. You'd like to see him stay more disciplined on the inside. And I think if he did, that would get him more consistency. Too often in games, you see him with the 1 yard, 2 yard carries, and you're like, what's going on? And then later in the game, he's busting out those 5 to 7 to 10 yard carries. That's why he's not yet proven himself to be the feature back, because he hasn't had that consistency in that area as a pass catching back and as a passing blocking back. Those are 3 areas that he'll have to gain to become the no doubt feature back, whether that's next year or 2019 or whenever. I'm sure a similar game plan for the Titans offensively this week. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a short week this week, so I don't think that you'll see Marcus do too much running. I mean, he may be able to do a little bit more of the read option stuff. I don't see them calling many run plays for him. I don't see him taking many run plays. He may be able to get a little bit further outside the pocket, but I wouldn't count on that. I think the bye week will do wonders for him. It actually came at a really good time. Because if he's able to get this bye week, get healthy, you hope that he comes back 100% or at least close to 100% when he comes back after that Baltimore game. And then you can see that dual threat quarterback that we saw earlier in the year, and that can really open up the run lanes even more for DeMarco and Derek, because now teams have to respect the read option in ways they haven't before. And as far as Derrick Henry and the keeping it inside, to go briefly back over there, he has to adjust a little bit based on what defenses are showing. They've been doing a lot of A-gap blitzes, and I know you, Chris, you mentioned blitzes on the other side, but a lot of teams are sending those A-gap blitzes so that they can stop the running attack. They figure, hey, we stopped DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, whether it's with Matt Castle or whether it's with the limited Marcus Mariota, then we should be able to win the game. That's how teams are game planning the Titans. But once Marcus is back, full with his legs, and now he's showing teams that he can throw for 300 yards with his arm inside the pocket, then defenses aren't going to be able to load up the box in the way they were before. They're going to edge them out of the box. Safeties are going to have to play a little bit further back. And then you're going to see a little bit more of that consistency in the run game, and defenses are going to be caught off guard. And I think you can see this offense really open up to become a top 10, top 15 offensive unit. I think we're a few weeks away from that, but I think I see that potential when I watch the tape. Let's see. Go ahead early, something we haven't been doing. Yeah, no, they haven't been. Their first quarter offense has been really bad. They had a few field goals this past week, but they haven't been able to get there. Maybe they adjust their first 15 plays. Maybe it's just guys aren't warmed up yet. But I love to see them come out first drive against the Browns, put 7 on the board, and let their defense play from ahead instead of behind. Maybe that gets a little bit more pass rush, and we see a little bit of a easier result for this Titans team. Chris, what you got? What's the best thing you saw on the adjustment or blitzes against the Colts? I think you're talking about as far as the Titans defensively. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, yeah, they blitzed a good bit more in the second half. I think there was one stat that they blitzed Jacoby Brissett 5 times in the first half, and they blitzed him 9 times in the second half. So that first half, Jacoby Brissett was able to do really well against the blitzes. They weren't able to get pressure. Derek Morgan and Brian Arakpo, they were sending extra guys, but they weren't able to get pressure consistently on the quarterback. And that's how you saw guys like Jack Doyle getting some catches. You saw them throwing those short passes and Jacoby Brissett moving up and down the field. Marlon Mack was breaking out some big plays, as well as Frank Gore. But in the second half, they really focused on upping the blitz count. They had 9 blitzes in the second half. Jacoby Brissett was 2 of 9 on those blitzes, and they pressured him 6 of those times. So with a young DB core, Logan Ryan, Adoree Jackson, you can't count on those guys to cover for 3, 4, 5 seconds on the back end. And if they have to, then you're going to see them get beat. It's simple. It's not rocket science. You've got young cornerbacks who are still learning the game against, guys like the Colts receivers, Moncrief, T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle. They're not going to be able to cover for 5 seconds. So I think this is on the front 7 in the first half to do better. And the second half, they were able to. They sent a lot more blitzes. They stopped playing as much soft zone coverage. In the second half, they stopped, they had a lot of respect for T.Y. They said that after the game. They didn't want him to beat them deep. So they played a lot of 10, 12 yards off, and they played a little closer in the second half. And I think that helped them. And then once they got a few 3 and outs early in the drive, that really helped their confidence. And you could see them playing faster, playing more aggressive. So maybe they come out more aggressive in the first half against the Browns. But I think they're starting to turn the page defensively. And that unit isn't becoming as much of a weakness as they have been in recent weeks. How sure are we that Cyprien and Davis are coming back after the bye? I keep hearing they're getting close. Corey Davis is closer than Jonathan Cyprien. So I would say that you'll probably get Corey Davis against Baltimore. That's what I've been saying. Like I said, hamstrings are tricky, so he could always aggravate that thing. You hope not, but he can always aggravate that thing. But I think Corey Davis will be back against Baltimore. Jonathan Cyprien, they've been saying that they hope they get him back close to after the bye. I think he may be a guy that's still kind of iffy for Baltimore. You hope to get both of them back, but Cyprien's been out for almost 2 months. It'll be almost 2 months after the bye. And his hamstring injury was a little bit more serious. So I think he's more iffy for Baltimore, but he's a guy who you'll see in the second half of the year, maybe against Indianapolis, that next game, I believe. But right now, count on Corey Davis, Jonathan Cyprien. We'll see. Let's see. Karen, why can't the Titans stop a kick return? I keep thinking the opposing team is going to take one to the house. Yeah, that was one of their bigger negatives coming out of the game, and they'll work on that. Malarkey mentioned it in his press conference on Monday. I want to give a shout out to Bryce McCain because I think that I think his name was Bray. He probably scores a touchdown on that kick return if he doesn't save that tackle on the back end. They got positive yards. Got it onto the Titans side of the ball, but they held him to a field goal defensively, and that's probably a touchdown if Bryce McCain doesn't make that tackle. So, yeah, they've got to do better in the kick return. It's a balance because on that particular kick, they kicked it high and short, trying to force the Colts to return it in hopes that they can get them pinned deep on that comeback drive, and it backfired. So, there's a balance between, hey, do we kick it out of the end zone every time and just take them at the 25, or do we try to pin them deep? We saw Adoree Jackson get pinned deep by the Colts one time when they kicked it high and short, and the Titans had to start inside their 10. That's what you want every time, but the drawback is that if they were able to return it and get outside contained like Bray did, then you've got a serious situation where the team's almost in scoring position already. So I think you'll see, that might entice the Titans to say, hey, we're just going to kick it through the end zone no matter what. They'll probably look at what happened on the tape and see who was responsible. Maybe that creates some adjustments in the special team lineup and say that, hey, we get this guy off, bring another guy on. But sometimes things happen. They've been relatively good on special teams throughout the year. Their kicker has been probably the best in the league so far. The punter, Brett Kern, has having a Pro Bowl year. I'll mention Ryan Suckup, that's the kicker's name. He won AFC Special Teams Player of the Week this week after winning September AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. So, yeah, I think they're having a really good special teams year, but the kick return issue, like you mentioned, is one that you've got to get going. Let's see. 2-1 in division. Yep. They've already matched their win total in division through 3 games that they had last season as a whole. So they've got a chance to be 50-50 in the division, after the bye, and maybe even get a winning record. That hasn't happened in forever. So that would be really big for this Titans team. Why not cut Dodd and put him on the practice squad if someone else claims him? Oh, well, they could use Caraway if Morgan is out. Here's the thing. Kevin Dodd's a second-round pick a year ago. I know a lot of people are disappointed. It feels like he's a bust at this point. But honestly, Josh Caraway is going to stay on the practice squad. Nobody's going to pick him up off the practice squad, and if they do, then the Titans can make a decision on bringing him up. As far as Kevin Dodd being on, he's inactive. So you basically ask yourself, is there anybody out on the market right now that would be active over Kevin Dodd? And I don't think Josh Caraway would be active even if he was on the roster. He wasn't active most of the season, even when he was on the active roster. So it's just kind of a swapping a name just to be on the inactive sheet. You keep working with Kevin Dodd. You try to get him better. Hopefully he builds his confidence. I think it's a lot of mental stuff. His foot is still what bothers him mentally. So maybe you get him through another offseason. Maybe he puts on weight and becomes a defensive lineman. Maybe he loses some weight and tries to be a quicker outside linebacker. Maybe you see a little bit more of that athleticism and pass rushes you see in college. I don't think you give up on him yet. I've been just as disappointed as you guys. He hasn't shown anything. He has, started to create some buzz on whether he's a bust. But I'm not ready to give up on him yet. The Titans aren't yet. I think he gets throughout the year, and we see next offseason. Next offseason, that could be a guy who you're thinking this is a make-or-break offseason for him. But I don't think we're seeing anything at this point this season. Let's see. I'll try to answer a few of these guys quickly so you guys are kind of piling up. Thank you guys for the questions. I love doing this with you guys as long as you guys enjoy doing it. So let's run through these guys a little bit. What was with the kickoff return formation? 10 guys close on 10 yards, onside kick, and Dory. They probably thought that the Colts were going to kick an onside kick at that situation. I'm not exactly sure which play you are referring to, but that sounds like an onside kick formation. So I'll go back and look at special teams looks. I tried to get through the film pretty quickly, so I kind of skipped a lot of the special teams plays. But I'll go back and look and see if there's anything worth noting on that. Nick, biggest threat that the Browns present to the Titans, and on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the confidence meter? I'd say 8. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This Browns team is bad. They don't know who their quarterback is. They played like 3 quarterbacks. Deshaun Kaiser's going to start this week. He's a rookie. Dick blow scheme. He should be able to cook up some blitzes to make this guy uncomfortable. But I'm not at a 10 yet because this Titans team hasn't shown enough for me to be confident on a 10 level against any opponent. If they were playing against Alabama, I'd probably still say it's 8 or 9. So I think that Myles Garrett is probably the biggest challenge. He's probably their best player offhand. And he's a guy who could really take over a game if he's able to get pass rush. So the biggest fear I see in this Browns game is if the Titans get down early, aren't able to score offensively, and then Myles Garrett is able to attack a Marcus Mariota who's limited inside the pocket. And then you get a situation where you're trying to fight and get a win against a Browns team ugly, and that's not where you want to be in Cleveland. So that's probably my biggest worry, but confidence level still at 8. Browns game screams trap game. I agree that it's a game where if they don't wake up, if they don't practice well, if they don't, come out here thinking that this is an NFL team that we've got to play well to beat, then they can get beat. You got to hope that they're coached well enough to get up for this game, but we'll see. Larry, if we don't make the playoffs, do you think it's going to be some changes? I don't know. I know a lot of people say that. That's the quickest thing to go to the coaching staff. But I think that coaches don't get the real chance to truly show their worth and show who they are as a team. I know a lot of fans complain about the play calling, complain about Mularkey, LeBeau, Trubisky. But this is a team that went 9-7 last year. This is a team that is tied for first place in the division. There's a lot of teams that are in worse situations than this. The Titans not too long ago were in worse situations than this. So if you fire coaches every 2 years, you become the Browns team that a lot of you guys are laughing at going into this week. So I don't think you want to be that team. I think Mularkey's safe relatively. I think, if everything implodes and they lose, 9 in their next 10 games and they miss the playoffs, then maybe it's a different conversation. But I think even if they miss the playoffs, as long as they're competitive, I think Mularkey gets another year. But then it becomes more of a important year in year 3 for him. That being said, I do think that this is a playoff team. They should make the playoffs, whether it's as a division team or as a wild card team. The Texans seem to be the biggest threat. We'll see how the Colts look with Andrew Luck back, but I think it's the Texans versus the Titans going down the stretch. No, I'm not buying the Jags. Good defense. You can't win a division with Blake Bortles at quarterback. And until I get proven otherwise, I'm sticking with that. Let's see. Clayton. Hey, will Marcus be mobile in this game or stay in the pocket? I would say that he'll stay more in the pocket. I think he'll still be a pocket passer. Maybe he makes some growth on that hamstring injury, but I think you see a lot of Marcus in the pocket, which was a good sign for them this week. But I think you see a lot of that this week. After the bye, I think he gets some of his mobility back. Justin, I didn't see Walden in the second half, and the Titans were unable to get into the backfield. Did he not start or miss him? He's not a starter. Walden is their third outside linebacker. Brian Arakbo and Derek Morgan are starters. Walden played in the second half a lot because Derek Morgan had an abdominal strain, and he was out of the game. So Derek Morgan's day-to-day. For some reason, he can't play. Then you would see Eric Walden play and probably start. And for you Kevin Dodd lovers, he would probably be active in that situation. But right now, Morgan's just day-to-day. So, yeah, Walden's not a starter, but you'll probably see a lot of him this game as well. Sly Williams was inactive. Promote Woods. No, I do not think so. I think I've been asked this question a lot. Sly was a surprise inactive. But here's the thing. You're paying him a lot of money. You're not going to cut him. You only have room for 2 nose tackles on the roster. They started Austin Johnson, and Austin Johnson was the only nose tackle up. You don't really need a lot of nose tackles in these day and ages. So Austin Johnson's probably going to be the guy who's active. If Sly is not active next week, it'll be Austin Johnson. And if he is active, you'll see both of them. So I think that's what we're looking at. I think Antoine Woods is there to continue to develop. If there's an injury on the defensive line, then maybe Antoine Woods gets called up. But there's no reason to have 2 or 3 nose tackles on the roster for no reason. Deshaun Kaiser is going to start. We definitely should win. I mean, you think so. Like I said, I watched that Giants-Broncos game, and, the Giants were double-digit underdogs, and they beat up on that Broncos team. So if the Titans have the mindset that you do, they can get beat. So they've got to come in and respect this team and get after it and score early and get ahead early. Halftime adjustment was good, particularly defensively. Seems like they lined up for onside return at least 3 or 4 times. I'll look at that. I know that as far as a punt return, they had Weems and Jackson back there because of the way the punter was set up. So maybe it was something the Colts kicker did on film that, had them change their kickoff return formations. Taurus, we need consistency from coaching staff. The best organizations don't have much turnover unless coaches move on to better jobs. Every coaching staff, like I say this every week, and I try to be the conduit for the real on both sides, like from the coach's side, from the player side, and then from you guys' side. 3/4 of NFL fan bases are unhappy with their coaches. I firmly believe that. Like, maybe the Patriots are happy with Bill Belichick. Maybe the Colts. Maybe the Chiefs are happy with Andy Reid. Even the Steelers are upset at Mike Tomlin sometimes that he's won a Super Bowl. Fan bases are never happy with their coaches. That doesn't mean that you fire coaches every 2 years if they're not winning the division, if they're not having the consistency that you want. Yes, coaches have to improve just like players, but I think this coaching staff is fine. What's your prediction on the score for Tennessee-Cleveland? I usually give my prediction on Thursday, but I'll give you guys a special taste because you guys are such a great group watching this chat. Give me Titans 27, Browns 13. I think they win. They have a complete game, and I think they win comfortably. I'm going 27-13, Titans. If DeMarco goes down, do you think Derrick Henry is a running back 1 for fantasy? I think he's definitely a starting running back. As far as a running back 1, that's tough because DeMarco hasn't been in a running back 1. I think you probably see him as a really strong running back 2, maybe a low-end running back 1. I do think the problem with Derrick Henry would be, are you going to be able to get catches if you're in a PPR league? He has solid pass catching ability that we see in practice, but they don't use him in that role as a receiver in games much. He only has 2 catches all year. So if you're in a PPR league, it may be tougher to get running back 1 numbers. He may be more of a high-end running back 2 in that scenario. But if you're in a non-PPR league, then yeah, I think he would be a running back 1 if DeMarco Murray isn't playing. As of now, I think you've got DeMarco Murray probably as a running back 2 and Derrick Henry as a flex play every week, with both of them in the lineup. Do you believe in the term exotic smash mouth? I was here before it was coined, so I don't know if I know the full definition of exotic smash mouth. I'll ask Malarkey after practice today just so I can get a better understanding. But I think the exotic portion that I've seen is the fact that they run a lot of creativity in that run game. And I know a lot of fans hate it, the jet sweeps to the jet sweeps to Delaney Walker, the jet sweeps to Rashard Matthews, the jet sweeps to Taywan Taylor, the shovel passes Delaney Walker. Some of them work, some of them don't work. But I think the exotic smash mouth basically says that we're going to run the ball a lot, but we're going to be creative when we do it. I like the fact that they're willing to be creative. They're willing to try new things. They're willing to do stuff like go empty formation with 3 tight ends on the field. That's something that a lot of teams aren't comfortable in doing. So I do like it, even if it doesn't work all the time. So if that's the definition of exotic smash mouth, I do believe in it. Do you think Cyprien and Davis can return after the bye week? I talked about that. I think Davis does. Cyprien may be a little bit more iffy. I think he returns after the bye week, but I think you're asking the game after the bye week, which is against Baltimore. I think Davis is probably about 80-90% chance to go that game. Cyprien may be closer to 50-50, barring any setbacks from either. Carlos, we should play more bump and run if they beat us over the top. So what? Our safeties are better than our corners. It would stop all the short 15-yard runs and wide receivers in the slot. All right, let's do this. I know a lot of people say this. What would you have rather happen last night? Would you have rather them get nickeled and dimed for 8 to 10-yard catches and have the Colts drive down the field, or would you rather T.Y. Hilton ran all over the defense for 150 yards? Because that's what you're risking when you're playing bump and run coverage with a young cornerback group. I can't stress that enough. I know it's not one or the other. You got to look at your personnel and say, can we play man coverage on this group? Can our safeties be counted to be over the top all the time? You're giving up something all the time. No defense takes away everything. No defense ever takes away anything. Even in Denver had the best defense I've seen in the NFL over the last 2 years while I was there. And even they had weaknesses. Their weakness was the run game. They struggled in run defense because they played a lot of man coverage. And they struggled to play against mobile quarterbacks because they always played man and their back was to the quarterback. Those were their weaknesses. They knew it, but they played so good defense that they were able to give up. They were willing to give up those things to be successful. I think you got to look at that from a defensive perspective and say, okay, this Titans DB crew is young. Their safeties may be better. And I mean, honestly, Kevin Bard and Denoris Cersei are the safeties back there. I'm not sure that they're far and away better than Logan Ryan and Adoree Jackson. I know the depth in the cornerback crew, particularly with Adoree Jackson and LaShawn Sims and Bryce McCain, is not the level that you may want as far as depth. But you look at a situation where if you aren't giving them the help that they need, if you're not letting them play off coverage, you're looking at a scenario where teams can run past them. We saw what happened when they played straight up against them with DeAndre Hopkins, and that was a rough outing. So I think they actually had a really decent game plan, particularly in the second half, and say, hey, if you're going to nickel and dime us for 8 to 10 yards, go ahead and do that. But we don't believe that you can consistently do that throughout the game, and they couldn't. Let's see. We're going to close in a little bit. I'll take a few more questions, and I got to get out of here. Titans got practice in about an hour. Wolfe with the cheap shouting us out. I mean, hey, I got to try to keep everybody honest. I got to keep the coaches honest, the players honest, the fan base honest. I try to be the conduit for all. Let's see. Do you think Mariota is better pocket passer or mobile quarterback? Like with the running back rotation, I don't think it has to be either or. I think that he's showing a lot of people that he can be a really good pocket passer. A lot of his game relies on the read option. So I know a lot of people that I talk to on a national basis, even people who don't really know the Titans up close, think that Mariota is just a running threat who can throw. He's a quarterback who can run. And I think that this game showed that he can do that. There are a lot of dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL, growing amounts going forward, particularly how the college game is becoming. But I do think that Marcus can do both. And I think his strength, his unique strength is obviously the fact that he can run. And I talked to Terry Visky about this earlier in the year. There's not many quarterbacks that can throw for an 80-yard touchdown and run for an 80-yard touchdown. And that's what Marcus gives you. So his dual threat ability is a huge portion of his game. So I don't think you can say that he's better as a pocket passer or better as a mobile quarterback. I think he's at his best when he can do both. But I think this past game showed that he can just be a pocket passer if he has to. And that may help him later in his career. As his legs betray him, if he gets to a point where they decide, hey, the injuries aren't worth you running, then maybe he becomes more of a pocket passer, and he showed that he can be successful in that realm. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. 30 is always a good number. I would garner to say that most teams win when they score 30 points. Corey Davis, I do think he plays this week. Yes, good that they kept T.Y. in check. I wrote a story earlier that week about their focus on T.Y. and they really locked him down. He had one catch for 19 yards. So you got to get a lot of props to Logan Ryan and Adoree Jackson for their defense on them. I'm a high school, bro. Nah, I'm not in high school, dog. I know I look like it, baby face. Hopefully that helped me when I'm 50. I can still get carded when I go into the club or go do whatever. So, I'm 24. When do you see Adoree making his kick return debut? He's already the kick returner. I'm guessing you're referring to taking one to the house. I think, any game now. I think he gets a punt return before he gets a kick return. But I think he breaks one out this year. I'm on record to saying I think he gets at least one this year. And I think it could happen any week. Let's see. I'll go through the rest of these and then we'll close it up. Thank you guys again for joining the chat. I enjoy doing it. And enjoy you guys asking questions. Malarkey, pull more discipline on penalties. Yeah, he talked about that. Get guys off the unit if they're not going to be able to hold off on penalties or if they're not going to be able to keep their contain. What are you talking about? I work for them. Did I miss the question? I tried to answer every question. I do work for ESPN, but I will answer every question. Let's see. Clayton, we don't really see Malarkey much. I know a lot of people say he's a nice person and he has a stern. Here's the thing with Malarkey. He's an old school coach. I like him as a guy. He's really nice to me. Maybe that's because he knows that I write good or bad stuff based on that, but I write good or bad stuff based on how they perform, not based on my relationship with the head coach. But he's a nice guy. I think he can be his how do I describe it? His emotion level is dependent on what the topic is. If they're winning, if he's typically good. If it's football stuff, he's good. I know he didn't really enjoy when we were asking a lot of questions about the anthem with Rashard Matthews and his decision to stay into the locker room, and the team's decision to stay into the locker room. He didn't like those questions. He actually went off on me during a presser after that one day based on a question I asked on Rashard Matthews and how the decision came about for him to stay in the locker room. But yeah, he's not a fan of those questions. I know a lot of coaches aren't. Malarkey just went off. McCarthy from Green Bay just went off on a Kaepernick question. So a lot of coaches are that way. But for the most part, I think Malarkey's a good guy. He's been in this industry a while. I think he gets a bad rap a lot of times because of his record. But I think the team really respects him. Mariota was good in the pocket. I think that this was maybe his best game in the pocket, definitely this year and maybe in his career. So yeah, guys, thank you guys for joining. We'll do this again next week. Send any feedback as far as the chat, anything you guys want to hear. If you got any topics you want me to ask the team about, I'll be sure to try to vet it. But enjoy, you guys. Thanks for being a cool fan base, and we'll chat soon.